Akiharu Hino. A suspiciously stupid guy loses his parents and gets adopted by his uncle's family. In this ridiculous abomination of an anime, Akiharu trains as a butler at an elite school, but all the girls hate him. He finds himself in a battle for supremacy over the school, and this is where the chaos unfolds. I don't really know their names, but there's this lucky guy, a very ugly, dumb cow, but yet a lucky cow that was transferred to an all-girls school. But that's not the most interesting part. If you thought that they ran into each other, they didn't. I also thought so too. Let me run you through how we got there. The anime opens with the female butlers being prepped on receiving official duties from this day henceforth. Their ladies walk in and everyone attends to their lady. But there's this girl, Flameheart Selnia, who's just had about enough of being treated like a tiny little princess who can't raise even a finger for herself. These ladies you see sitting across the room do not even get to bath themselves, that's how bad it is. We'll call her Flameheart cause that's just how she is. She's got a fire for a heart. Psyche comes and sits across Flameheart on the same table. Flameheart was not so welcoming, and Psyche was not about to let the disrespect slide. With every slander, she only got more on Flameheart's nerves, and she almost broke loose at some point. If she had pressed a little more, Flameheart would have. But then Flameheart indulged her and said she's tired of living this life and needs a little sugar to spice things up. Psyche grinned like the devil and said if she's looking for something to spice up her life, it's gonna fall right out of the sky. I know that by now you know we're talking about the dumb boy that was transferred, but here's where it gets interesting. Psyche was the one who was supposed to pick the dumb, foolish transfer student and take him to the principal's office, but somehow Flameheart was casually strolling through the field and the dumb cow just walked by her like she was a ghost Flameheart was well known and was not about to let that simpleton walk past her like she's not smoking hot. She called him back, took one good look at his ugly face and decided he's too repulsive to the eye to be in this school and tried to put him in his place, but Blood was not ready to put up with her sassy attitude. He just turned around and told her to take her childish behavior to kindergarten class. She walked up to him to give him the Randy Orton's RKO, but her attempt failed and thus, we've arrived at that scene. This turned into a high chase speed in less than 5 seconds. But there was a problem. Girls weren't expecting to see a guy in the school, so any lady he ran by always passed out. And did I mention just how sumptuous and soft Flameheart's milk jugs were? He ran into a girl in a bid to hide from the flaming tiger, Flameheart that is chasing him. He had to hold the girl and try to keep her mouth shut, but his other hand was He escaped barely with his life and landed in the tea room where he mistakenly hit a lady and spilled a little tea all over her uniform. Without breaking a thought, she stood up and started taking off her clothes. The ugly boy had to stop her from pulling her bra. But just then, a maid came flying like a rocket and landed all her heavens on the ugly boy's face, and even pounced all over his face for about a good amount of time, probably enjoying his face a little too much. I need some of that right now. Flameheart gets there and the chase is back on, and for a second time, he runs into Psyche, and again, he gets a good sweet feel of her milk jugs before jumping off her. The other ladies run in, including the ringleader Flameheart, and they're not willing to let him off. But after Psyche teased Flameheart, she was left with no choice but to back down and let this very lucky cow have a clean sheet. The episode closes with a simple ending with, wait, I didn't introduce this guy. His name is Hino Akiharu, a very lucky cow whose own roommate doesn't like it, and as I was saying, the episode closes with Flameheart sitting on her bed and reminiscing about how her milk jugs were handled. The next day, and Flameheart cannot just wrap her head around the fact that her milk jugs were properly felt by those two goody shoes. Ugly looking simpleton. They get to class, and unfortunately for the very lucky cow, he's in the same class with Psyche, who's now giving off the vibe of a smirking serial schemer, and just right behind his chair is Flameheart, who he calls Duo Drill because of her hair. She didn't focus on class, she just stared at him all day and made him feel very uncomfortable in class. When class was over, that's when it got interesting. He already promised his roommate that he wouldn't make today difficult for anyone, but today's proceedings were already set to the highest difficulty by nature. When they got to the point of serving at their table, first he had no one to serve, and just when he was enjoying the fact that he had no one to serve, Flameheart showed up with all the sassiness of 10 universes and got so much on this boy's nerve. Hino was trying to stay calm, from pulling her chair for her to seat, to giving her the menu, and then she disgraced him by making him check for today's special. At this point, Brother already had it just enough for him to blow, but he just chilled out and found the most effective way to get back at Flameheart. He'd fill up a cup with water and hit it on the table, which would splash water all over Flameheart. He did it repeatedly, and Flameheart, being the black cat that she is, did not like water touching her. She got up to fight back, and after a few words, remember that butler who came flying into the scene from when the lady was stripping right in front of Hino when he was running away from Flameheart? It's got again. She's cursed, but I kinda like her. She displaces my hormones with her axe. She came flying in again, but this time, Hino was a victim because all the tea poured all over him, and it was hot. Really, really hot. He went to take a shower, and when he came outside, his mind was still clouded with the fact that the tea was hot, and it felt really painful. At the time, he remembered that he was naked. He tried to cover up, but the clumsy girl who keeps spilling tea didn't come to just say sorry with her mouth. She came with the intent to, My boy was straight up rejecting, but she didn't agree. She slipped and fell on him, slamming her sweet-looking milk jugs into his face, and my boy was like, she didn't stop. She continued until it got really interesting. On top of him, she slipped while trying to wash him and sat directly on his face. Something I've been begging my girl to do all year. They were busted anyways, and next, it was time for some emergency swimming lessons. Everything Hino did only got on the head butler's nerves, and she was not nice. She tried to take his life like twice. She threw him into the water. Flameheart came around. He tried to warn her not to get too close or her panties will be successfully peeked at. The lesson takes a whole new dimension now that it's rushing water and the same clumsy tea-spilling Butler came out of nowhere and bashed her hugs right into the boy's face again. Flameheart tries to help by throwing a floaty, but she ends up knocking him with the speed at which she threw it. He woke up at the infirmary with Saikyu next to him. They talk a little and Saikyu opens the door to reveal Flameheart eavesdropping. The episode ends with her trying to hide the fact that she cares and wants to ride his meat so badly. Hino's life was becoming a bit more interesting. I'm going to start off from the point when the teacher announced that the butlers are going to be assigned a lady who'll order them around and they'll have to do anything they're ordered. Even if it is for the butler to climb up to the highest mountain, jump off the mountain right into the back of a dragon, land in the middle of a kraken's mouth, swim out of its a-hole, kill an orca and come back without a single scratch. Everyone happily dashed off, except Hino, whose fate was left in the hands of the top schemer, Saikyu. First, she muttered in an energy that could rival that of Hakai, the power of a god of destruction from DBFs. She said she would make him walk around naked and do a lot of weird things. But in the end, she asked for something a bit more tasking. She told him to make sure that a certain female was properly attended to all day. In simple layman terms, he was to be Osawa's butler today. Remember that girl that he handled her tiny little assets? Yes, that's one. Hence began his quest to make sure that Osawa was well attended. First, all she did was run from him, and before you know, they were literally running like Tom and Jerry all day. Osawa had painting classes, but wouldn't paint because she didn't like painting. She ran into a cat that she immediately fell in love with, but then the dumb cow came and it ran away. As a befitting punishment, she made him look for the cat, and once he found it, he had to hold it in place for her to paint it. It ended up running away due to his incompetence. They found themselves in the tea room. Some ladies came in and muttered about how he could fill them with happiness. They quickly made their way from them. Osawa said she needed some time to herself, but she tripped and now had to be taken to the infirmary. When they got to the infirmary, he was patching up her wounds and make sure she was well catered to. At the infirmary, she opens up about her painting and he realized she only paints if she wants to. When they were heading back, those same girls who didn't keep their mouths shut came and tried to talk Osawa into drawing, but Hino chased them away, saying he'd bend them over and clap their cheeks into oblivion, or something like that. They ran away and she was really delighted that he fought for her. Later that day, the reports of the day were published in the paper, and I guess my boy didn't do bad at all. Something caught my eye that I almost leaked. Damn. Guess who also saw her in her true form, Hino? The stupid cow just walked in like he owns the place. The day starts normal, with Saikyu and Flameheart going at their usual word spars, but then they saw the cow walking, but today he's not the one tailing someone. He's being tailed by the lady he saw naked. Apparently, now that he has seen her naked, he has to wife her up sharp. Later, he tells Flameheart and Saikyu that he has messed up, but Flameheart's mind flew all the way to him physically bending her into a million positions and brought joy to her with a lot of strokes. But that didn't happen as we know. He explained that when he walked in on Lady Icy, her butler also walked in and she was no ordinary butler. She was a ninja, a properly trained assassination ninja, and immediately she saw him standing there. She quickly ran in and Shaolin kicked him in the head and he passed out for a few seconds. Once she was done attending to her lady, she pulled out a knife from a questionable place, and as she was about to properly slice through the joining between his neck and his body, Ace stopped him and said she'd prefer he wifed her instead. She's from a very rich and very strict family. Back on her end, Ace was taking her bath, but her maid doesn't still believe that Ace didn't let her cut through him like a piece of meat, and thus began Ice's chase for her husband to be. But the problem was that her maid didn't really like the idea. So the maid tried to end him once or twice by poisoning his food and throwing things on him from the ceiling. But another butler simper pervert guy took the hits. Then one time, she caught him in a trap and pulled him into a tent where he had a word with Ice and tried to discourage her. But just when the maid tried to slice him up like a fruit, he ran for his dear life. She was ready to fruit ninja slice him up. He went up to his room, but then he was kidnapped. His roommate went straight to Flameheart and Saikyu to report the incident. When Hino opened his eyes, he found himself in one of those amazing blue rooms. He saw Ice Akid next to him, and she was willing to tickle him violently. He tried to talk her out of it, but her ninja maid tied him up a bit more, like he was a rabbit for roasting. As she finished his chest before she could get to the main event, Flameheart bursts in and ruins everything. Apparently in the Kaden Ice family rules, Hino can choose not to marry because the whole event was a mistake, and now that it has come to light, Ace apologizes, hugs him, and tells him that she can't wait for all his love and affection. If you know what I mean. Flameheart was glad she didn't lose him, but she went on rapping about how she's doing it for the school's reputation. Hino wonders how Saikyu knows the Kadim family rules, but she dismissed his thoughts. But after the image papers spread all over her table, we know she did some reading, and it also brings up the suspicion that Saikyu is up to something fishy. I just don't know what it is yet. You know Saikyu, who is also called Tomomi, her mother remarried to a rich man, so she was plunged into the world of Disney-born princesses like Flameheart with the 2 drills she carries around as her hair. Saikyu was very intelligent, so on the entrance exam, she made the highest score, and Flameheart came second. And that's how the record has been. So, POV at Flameheart, since the day she stepped foot in this school, she has been number 2. She's red, she has worked twice, and 3 times as hard, but every time the results comes out, there it is, Saikyu's name just above hers. It's been consistent, and it's been consistently getting on her nerves, like the way Vegeta is always angry that Goku is kinda stronger, for cosmic reasons unknown to man. While she was fuming about how she's number 2 once again, Hino was at the corner enjoying just the grade he got, because that's just how guys are. But then came the clumsy maid, the girl who always falls over. We're calling her the clumsy maid, came with her sister, who needs to pass an exam, or she'll be kicked out of school. The clumsiness didn't just end with the clumsy maid. It transferred to her sister too, but her sister was way worse. Because her sister had a brain of a 2-year-old, she was dumber than the dumbest cow I've ever seen to grace the animeverse. Right there, as the clumsy maid was speaking, her sister began to take off her clothes, getting ready to take some intense wood by 6 joyful dark-skinned men. But just then, Flameheart storms by and went into the tea room, where she's served by Hino. She asked him how Saikyu has always been, and he tells her that Saikyu is very smart and coming second to her. Is not that bad, but that ticked Flameheart off, and she said that he would not just understand. Now, POV at Saikyu is having her normal and very casual day of scheming. During the body measurements and weight check, it was glaringly obvious that the curves and humongous milk jugs on Flameheart really bothered her. Her jugs were not just big enough, and her curves were not just curvy enough. The curves specifically were 2 lines away from being straight AF. Right from the beginning of time, this 20th generation computer-brained girl was the best in class, but didn't feel like the best because no matter how smart she came off, Flameheart being the number 2 in class, just had what it took to pull a bigger audience to herself. Saikyu just had no means of catching up. Especially since there was no BBL at that time, I know she would have jumped right at it if there was. She goes to the tea room and also treats Hino like a piece of rag and tells him that he wouldn't just understand. At this point, I'd be packing my bags and changing my table because I do just understand women. Later they sat together, both Saikyu and Flameheart, on the same table, and they fussed around all throughout Hino servicing them. Later we found out that the water system has an issue and will take a week to fix. In came the other male butler, Totoro, who just needed to fill his eyes with the beauty of milk jugs. The whole school is to use hot springs, and that gives Totoro the best opportunity to sneak a peek. On the first trial of sneaking a peek, Han unfortunately dragged along, and he was severely punished as hell. The next day he tried to peek, Saikyu and Flameheart got themselves locked in the hot spring, and in a rare moment of emotions, they both agreed to never lose to anyone. Then Hino walked towards the hot spring, and when they heard his voice, they called out to him, and he broke down the door, and mind you, this cow was naked, and so were the other well-cooked chickens that were locked in the hot spring. When he broke through the door, he intimately pounced directly on Flameheart, and for a second time in the series. He had a sweet squeeze of those milk jugs like a boss. As if grabbing those was not enough, the episode closed with Hino grabbing on yet another set of milk jugs. This episode focuses on Hino's very peculiar roommate, Daichi, who, surprise, is a girl. From the moment Hino first stepped into their shared room in episode 1, Daichi's awkward behavior stood out. By episode 4, her sketchy antics were impossible to ignore. Turns out Daichi's father had strictly ordered her to live life as a man. To make matters even more complicated, she's cursed with the flattest chest ever recorded in human history. Seriously, chests could be erased from existence. Hers would be the blueprint. The episode kicks off with Flameheart announcing a fancy ball, where everyone gets to dress up in their finest attire. And guess what? Daichi, who's been working hard to keep her secret under wraps, now must navigate this whole charade with the densest human alive, Hino. How this guy hasn't figured out that his roommate is a woman, despite catching her chest binding sessions, is beyond comprehension. But honestly, with a chest that flat, is there even anything to hide? Next up is cooking class, because apparently being a maid or a butler without culinary skills is a crime. Unfortunately for Hinam, he gets paired with the clumsiest girl in the universe. Hino's cooking skills involve barely managing to boil water, but Daichi steps in and whips up a meal that could put a 7-star restaurant to shame. Enter clumsy girl, who somehow turns whisking into a disaster, creating a blast so chaotic it covers everything within 5 miles in a mysterious substance resembling. Let's just say it was a mess. No. Frustrated, Daichi heads off to shower, Just as luck would have it, Hino also enters the next stall, obliviously starting his own shower routine. When Daichi's towel slipped, she was milliseconds away from being exposed, but Hino remained as clueless as ever. The ball itself had a bizarre twist. The maids and butlers had to cross-dress, all thanks to their principal's idea of fun. As expected, every lady showed up looking like a Disney princess, including Saikyu. Hino and Tomo, meanwhile, knew they'd make hideous women, so they decided to dress as statues instead. Daichi, wrestling with her desire to embrace her true self, finally chose to wear a dress. At the last second, Saikyu swooped in with a makeup rescue mission, turning Daichi into a showstopper. She walked into the ball and dazzled everyone. As the night ended, Daichi took a shower, relieved to be done with the ordeal. Just then, Hino strolled in and walked right past her. Daichi panicked, certain her secret was out. But thanks to her unparalleled flatness, her disguise remained intact. Another day, another close call. Finally, the episode began with dancing and chanting something on a tree. Didn't pay attention to the branch, so it broke, and she fell right into Hino's arms. I'm pretty sure one of the reasons he didn't mistakenly grab her milk jug is because there is actually nada. She's just as flat as Daichi, or maybe even flatter. The next morning, the girl is panicking in class about her hammer. She goes for a walk in the park, and it was announced that she should find her way to the principal's office. When she got there, she found Hino sitting right there, and like an unclassic cow, he casually just waved the hammer she called it hers. As he was spitting crap about her midnight session, she pulled the hammer out of his hands and told him what it was. And with that, my friends, the anime took a nosedive into a full-fledged episode from my dress-up darling, Pina, the girl who fell into Hino's hands, was in the principal's office. The principal confessed to being the one sponsoring the anime creation, and so she has the exact blueprints of everything. The principal's butler won't let her indulge in such matters. As soon as the principal was about to agree to participate, her butler sent her ice-chilling as death looks, and the principal backed down. Just when Pina was looking for who to recruit, Hino barged in to apologize to her. Apparently, Hino is the first princess of the European countries, and thus, she's a very important person, and Hino wanted to say sorry for the way he spoke to her a while ago, but now he's wrapped into the world of cosplay. Before we knew it, Saikyu was in too. All they needed now were very cute ladies with the curves to pull 1,000 men. I knew your mind already went straight to Flameheart. Like a rap of blessing from the Lord, she walked in at the appropriate time. They played the long shot and got her to accept, but when she watched the cinema and saw the comics, she was not willing to dress so scantily. She opted out. Pina was chasing an excellent anime artist, Manami, but she was given a cold shoulder. But both ladies, Manami and Flameheart, had to personally speak to Hino, who advised them and got them back to cosplay. With the set complete, they began to take pictures. The first round of pictures were actually shown to Tomo, who immediately loved it. The guy's just a big pervert. As he was jamming about how lovely it is and he wanted to step out to do a little man business in the toilet, Hino knocks him out. During the second shoot, Hino took a last shot of everyone, happily enjoying the cosplay. Here comes a little scene that looks like Flameheart and Hino are about to start the baby-making process. Could this be a dream? Or am I just tripping? Let's find out. It's spring vacation and everyone can willfully take a butler home. And guess who didn't skip a beat to carry the butler she's been drooling over home? Flameheart. She immediately asked Hino to partner with her so she could drag him home. On the day of dragging him home, she didn't offer a ride. She let him walk under the sun, carrying her bags in the middle of summer when the sun is at its peak. When they arrived home, Hino was shocked to see the size of her home, but she told him her castle in England was way bigger. When they got inside, they were welcomed by maids, and the head maid did not waste any time in suggesting that the two of them are here to consummate their lifetime together. No matter how many suggestions they make, Flameheart kept shooting it down, and it was not like they cared anyway. Enter Mr. Flameheart, who came in the flashiest way possible, hanging off a ladder from a helicopter. When he came down, he greeted his daughter with 1,000 kisses, which didn't really sit well with Hino. When he set his eyes on Hino, he didn't waste any time in accepting him as his son-in-law. Mr. Flameheart took his leave right after Flameheart realized that her plans to make Hino work twice as hard and do her ever very silly bidding were not going to work. Later that night, they had a little chess game and she lost like a wimp. The waitress came in and said they'd be sharing a room because all other rooms are out of commission. Hino took the chocolate and passed out. Brother had been drugged. He gets up acting all drunk and starts making naughty comments about Flameheart's huge milk jugs, which takes us back to the first scene we saw in the episode with Hino on tip of Flameheart. Flameheart had the fire in her eyes and the look in her face. She was willing to let him take her flower, but this unsolicited dumb cow slept off the next morning. She went on acting all cranky, but all my boy could remember was playing chess and passing out. Later, Saikyu and Daichi came and they went to the beach. Since Daichi is a woman in disguise, she didn't have much fun. The others, on the other hand, did, but then when Flameheart saw Hino and Saikyu having a conversation, she got jealous and swam away only to struggle and drown. Hino jumped in and saved the day. Just as he's about to give her CPR, she wakes up and gives him a resounding slap. She later apologized, and at the end of the episode, she gave him a kiss. Guys, so, Hino went on a date. You might think it would be Flameheart the Drill Queen, but no, it was Saikyu. You see, just the other night, Saikyu saw them kissing. Flameheart and Hino. She couldn't wash it off her mind. Flameheart too, after her true love first kiss. He's been awestruck by her actions and an arrow struck by Cupid. The new session begins and Flameheart is trying to make sure that Hino doesn't go about blabbing that he kissed the prettiest girl in school. So Flameheart tails him and tries to know what he'll go about saying, but instead she was hit with a meteor. Saikyu asked Hino on a date. Hino was equally shocked because he knew there was an underlying motive just sitting there somewhere. He did not agree, but she just told him to make his ugly face available or she'll make him uglier. Flameheart, who's hiding in the bush, could not believe her ears. Her drills were very calm today. It was time for the date. Little did they know that they had a third wheel. They set out to eat, and as they were eating, Flameheart was somewhere watching them from the outside, and her clumsy maid with her very dumb sister. They saw Flameheart and greeted. Then they sighted Hino too and wanted to greet. They almost ruined Flameheart's plans, but she successfully pulled them away. The next place for the date was a cinema. They went to the cinema and Flameheart and the two sisters were there too. Saikyu would make advances, but since Hino is the airhead of the century and the blindest guy on Earth, he didn't even get a whiff that Saikyu was making advances at him. Flameheart was occasionally shouting at the back of the cinema, so she was kicked out with the two sisters. Once the cinema time was done, she ditched them like a pile of dirt. The next agenda on the list was shopping. This time as Flameheart was trying to tail them, she rubs into Pina and Manami. They accompany her shopping too. As Saikyu was shopping, Hino was standing on his own. When she picked the dresses, she called Hino to ask his opinion and he said they were fine. She wanted to try them on, so she teased him about going into the changing room with her. In the other changing room, Flameheart hid Pina and Manami there. The two of them get spicy and Pina starts rubbing on Manami's little They were kicked out. The next place was an arcade and Hino had to get a doll for his date. I don't know what it's called, never seen one in real life. Only in anime. It's this game where you use a machine hand to pick a stuffed animal. Then you put it somewhere, it comes out, blah 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 blah. He got one anyways, and they immediately left, but the trailer and her additional legs were distracted by a step dancing game, and when they were through, the lovebirds were already gone. Flameheart lost then. As the live birds were walking home, Hino asked what her motive for the day was, and she said she already figured out. I thought she was going to tempt him and take his virginity, and then it'll turn around and he'll endlessly drill her until she's shaking like a resonance machine. But she just wanted to see how he'll react to her advances and how she'll react to them too. Now we see Daichi bathing and coming out of the bathroom to find Hino already in there with her. She dressed and storms out as usual, leaving Hino wondering what's up with that guy for the 100th time. She goes on her usual no-smiling routine when she serves the ladies and they love it. It boils their curiosity to see her smile. At the end of the day, Daichi got a love letter and it literally turned the school into a hot talk session. Every girl group has got something to say, and you know the girls' locker room is no exception. As they were tapping about how audacious it was to send a letter out like that, Flameheart and Saikyu caught sight of themselves, and the dressing room split into two, giving them space to greet each other and go at it this morning if they needed to. But fortunately, or unfortunately, there was no fight to spectate today. The guys found out about the letter that Daichi received and was all on Daichi's neck all day. During workouts, they kept talking about it, trying to explain to Daichi why the letter must be honored, even if it meant turning down the beautiful young lady that took the opportunity to confess her love. They finally managed to convince Daichi, and now that Daichi agreed, what to say was not the problem. So they did the next classy thing to do. Teach Daichi. After school, the guys took turns trying to teach Daichi what to say, with Tomo specifically giving the wrong advice and Hino doing just the same thing as Tomo did. The pressure was a lot, so Daichi had to quit. With the spirit of love ingesting the oxygen that everyone is breathing in school, it's changing their thinking. This is also affecting Flameheart and Saikyu caused throughout the episode. They just could not get their minds off thinking of the best way to move their relationship with Hino to the next level. Frustrated, Daichi goes out and sits on a bench to think of what to do. In comes Hino with some sensible advice saying Daichi should make her feelings known to the girl no matter what those feelings might be. Hino preached, but little did he know that he preached to 3 females at once. Flameheart and Saikyu were nearby, so they heard him say those things to Daichi, and that got them thinking. Confession time. As soon as Daichi got there, he didn't waste any time in putting out his feelings that he can't be with her, for reasons he can't disclose yet. The young lady just wants to know why her love was turned down. When she asked Daichi if Daichi liked someone else, Daichi's first thought ran to Hino, and that shocked even her. As a sensible girl that very pretty lady was, she wished Daichi the best and left there with her self-respect. When the guys came, they commended Daichi for being strong and holding up. Daichi thinks that their friendship was the string wave of emotion she felt a few minutes ago, but you and I know that henceforth, he's always going to be in her eye. The 2 other important ladies in this series make up their mind to confess their feelings. They both meet on their paths and say that they now know what they must do. Innocent little Hino walks into their midst. I hope he chooses the best for him, because for me, I'm going the Milky Way. Here we see Pina giving Hino 2 tickets that she was given. They're tickets to an aquatic fun place, and now that he's got them, he has to worry about who he'll take there. When he was thinking and walking, he walked right into the last scene of episode 10. The ladies immediately go into a classroom to sort out their problems, but I'm a bit disappointed because no matter how they showed up with determination, they still didn't have the mind to say what's up. They just raised a lot of dust and beat around a lot of bushes. Hino was outside, but he was quite tired of them wasting his precious time. He entered the classroom and they saw the tickets in his hands. Saikyu rushed and calmly collected one. Then Flameheart diplomatically asked if she could go with him. Saikyu answered that since she's already with the ticket, it means she gets to go. Just when it almost got chaotic, the principal haphazardly announced to the whole school that a sports event will be coming up in a few days' time, and she already personally ordered clothes for the event. This gave Saikyu the best idea of the century. She went to the principal and proposed that whoever got the highest score in the upcoming sports event gets to go on an all-exclusive servant lady time with Hino, and this sparked up a lot of interest. And thus came the event. The clothes were skimpy for the ladies, and Tomo most especially enjoyed it. This event was just to entertain the principal, who has been bored for a while, and that's why she came up with this idea. The clumsy maid tried to crawl under ropes, and by some miracle, she got stripped halfway through. I don't even know how that is possible. The most intriguing part of the sports was with eels, perverted eels. Cause tell me the eels jump into the girls' clothes and rub around their milk jugs. There was a water tug-of-war. There was juggling. There were a lot of events, but then it drew close to the finale. There's a race, and Hino asked both parties why this race is so important and why going to the park is so important for them. They both answered saying that he wouldn't understand how important it is to them. The race started, and I can't wait to know how the turnabout will be as we approach the final episodes of this anime. For the final episode that you've all been waiting for, I know you want to know who finally gets the guy. So let's dice completely into it. For the finale of the event, the principal set up the female game to be 1,000 points. It was a 3-person horse riding game, so it was difficult. There was no rearranging the horse once one of you fell down. If you lose a limb, you lose a limb. If you lose a head, well, that's game over. Before the game, this airhead was trying to figure out why the outcome of the game was so important. It was for a personal reason. They both said, I once explained that academically, Saikyu always tops Flameheart, and that is very frustrating. Physically, Flameheart's curve could spark a fire everywhere she goes, and though Saikyu is not so bad, she feels very insecure. On top of that, and unlike the blind money this boy is, they both know that they love him, and neither is willing to lose to the other. The game was on, and in less than a few minutes, a lot of people had already failed. Tomo teamed up with a senior pervert, who I've totally ignored all series cause he's not important. Hino teamed up with Flameheart and the clumsy maid. How the clumsy maid made it through this part is still baffling. With their sheer willpower, they managed to take down 2 opponents, and now it was done to Flameheart and Saikyu. The battle was fierce. Every step was a milestone to victory and a cornerstone to defeat. Every swing was crucial. The ladies and their limbs battled for victory, and in a last stretch of strength, they both went in for the win, and victoriously, Flameheart won. That night, while they were in the hot spring, Saikyu congratulated her rival and admitted defeat, something that she would never do on a usual day. At the end of everything, guess what that clueless monkey did? He gave both the tickets to the ladies and said they both deserved it. Everyone was stunned by just how clawless this monkey is. Everyone was there and they knew what was going on, but this guy with the thinking capacity of a caterpillar could not tell that these ladies wanted to have his babies for life. He got a wonderful, double-edged slap from both the girls, and everyone walked out on him. I was expecting a more chaotic ending where one would have to die of jealousy of seeing the other have this monkey to herself. But I guess not all love stories have that kind of ending, and most definitely, this is not the end of this story, at all. If you enjoyed this recap, leave a comment saying, best recap ever, and let us know which other anime you would like recapped.